place of Nancy, and she is a member, voting member.
Okay. But I thought he was taking place for Greg.
I mean,
We
Kelly.
have two
Kelly.
alternates.
He was taking the place of Kelly.
All right.
I'm sorry. Who took the place of Nancy?
One of them.
It's
in the minutes.
Yeah. Go back and look at the minutes.
The next order of business is a roll call to determine we have a quorum of the Sharon, if you go ahead and start and introduce yourself.
Sharon Potts.
Bill Thomas.
Chrissy Black.
Fred Rogers.
Doug Buchanan, Josh Presley,
Mike Madeline.
Rodney.
Stevens.
All right, thank you.
Now there's a test, Rod. Now repeat all of them.
Here you go, I'll give you a hint.
Here, what's up?
All right. With that, I guess first order of business is to discuss the petition for zoning text change. Folks, I hope you guys had a chance to review this in depth. It is very complex, somewhat confusing, so we just want to take one piece at a time tonight. Don't want to go try to do all of it at one time. So, with that, I'll just go ahead and turn it over to you.
Okay. Simply put, this may not be said and understood. Simply put, we are asking your opinion as to whether we should put camping and recreational vehicle park use classification in RA4. Period. Now, that said, I gave you on page number 3, this is what the land use, the table of uses shows. If you go down to almost the bottom of the page, we'll have camping and recreational vehicle park. The supplemental regulation sections for this particular use are 180H. All that says it has to be 25 acres. And Appendix G, which gives you the outline of what a camping facility has to be. Going across, you'll see it is permitted only in HC with a special use permit. Now, we don't have any HC, but that's where it would be permitted if it was some. Okay? So we are asking you to propose, we're asking you to put, or asking you whether you would like to put this use in RA 40 as a special use permit. In other words, you're adding one other place it could be, RA 40 and HC. Okay? I'm okay by so far? Page 5. There are 2 camping uses. If you'll refer back to page number 4, you'll have 2 camping uses. Camping and recreational vehicle park use, and then camping primitive. Number 5, the definitions of your primitive are the first 2, primitive and semi-primitive. The developed is what we're talking about now, the C, D, and E. Semi-developed, developed, and fully developed. And that has to do with amenities that you have. If it's primitive, you're in the woods with a tent. If you're fully developed, you're in a campground with a shower. My camping, fully developed, is a Marriott with a color TV. If it ain't a color TV, it could be primitive. Okay? Anything else you want to look at? Definitions. Basic things are this is what I do when I look at a permit request. I look at, okay, what recreational vehicles are you talking about? What do they look like? How big are they? How many wheels does it have on? And it could be a travel trailer, a camping trailer, number two, truck camper, a motor home. Pre-application requirements, I'm on page 6. Pre-application requirements must be with environmental health for waste consumption or distribution or get rid of, and the land use administrator who reviews the site plan, and also the fire marshal, depending on what kind of structure. Number 7, go down to design standards. Master plan for the development of the entire tract of land shall be submitted along with detailed plans. So if you would have somebody come in and want to develop a campground of any degree, there needs to be a site plan and what is on that site plan. Things to consider: water supply. You're gonna have a well, or you're gonna have a spigot, or you're gonna have public water. Sewage disposal, collection, I call it way up my head, but you have campers, excuse me. But there are some campers that have bathrooms on. And there's a tank, right? And you go to a place where you can empty that tank.
Dumping station.
Huh?
It's called a
Dumping
dumping station.
station, yeah. So that's the reason I don't have campers. For those places, I would even say, camping, but also I would have many questions about site plan, where it is, the topography, how many, even from, is it wild, is there animals around, is there deer around, or, whatever. Number 8, every campground shall have at least one toilet per each sex. So there's no uniform on nothing.
Unisex.
Oh, wait, how many sexes are there now?
Don't ask that question.
That's a good question. We may need to amend this ordinance a little bit.
That's right.
Can you write me that definition? Can I put it in there?
I'm asking you. Me too.
I'm gonna start with 2.
Okay.
Birth, when it comes up. Water supply should be, added, permitted as accessory uses as to what is an accessory use, dumping stations, showers, corn operated laundries, or other structures commonly incidental to the operation of the campground, or accessory permits or accessory uses. Minimum of 8% of the gross site of a campground shall be open space. And part of any of these 2 definitions must be 25 acres. On page 9, the entrances, I think, all entrances to campground, if it's in highway, commercial, which it is now, NCDOT would be involved. As to how many campsites there were, turn lane needed, so forth and so on. And the interior site plan would be depending on how long the driveway is. It could be gravel, of course, or paved, or whatever. But there are certain standards that we would probably want it at least to be built that stays at the driveway itself. If you get into the park, or is there no driveway? Is the park just turning into the park? So that would have to be considered. Sharon and I were talking about driveways a little while ago. Depending on the site plan, at least 1.5 parking places. I don't know what half a parking place is, but it has to do with the whole park. Buffer between camping units. Here's a good question. No camping site shall be used as a permanent place of residence. Question came up, so well, what if it was for 3 months? What if it was 6 months? That's the kind of campground it is, so that would be part of the site plan and part of the description or narrative of what the developer wanted to do. That has to go through the process. Remember, each process of a special use permit has to come before y'all first. And it goes public hearing, or it's not judicial. Trash containers and shall be the duty of all owners or can't give these agencies free access. That's like, if there was a problem, they give free access to the Environmental Health Department or code enforcers to check any violation that you're of. Other than that, I'll turn it over to questions about what the questions are. Remembering, we're not talking about a specific site. That will come later. If somebody wanted to use this particular zone to put a campground in, so we're not talking about a particular site. We are talking about whether or not you feel like it would be appropriate to put camping in RA 40 for the entire community. Any 25 acre plot. Any 25 acre plot would be considered if it was in RA 40. So if Bill owned 25 acres and it was permitted in RA 40, he could apply for a campground. Not necessarily would he have one, but he could apply. Question, Bill? I see those, Bill's attorney in there.
I wonder how this came up.
That's, but now, I am
That was
so
my
glad
first
you asked that
question.
question. Why?
Knew it probably would come up.
Big names.
Yeah, but why?
There was a particular situation in Fairview that a young man built and operated a camping site without. He was, of course, quickly stopped from using the land as a campsite. He has come back and says, how would I get, now he comes back and says, how could I apply for a camping site the way I would have? I said, well, there's two ways. You look at the table of uses, and if it's allowed in that zone, you can apply for it. Well, what if it isn't? We'll say it requires a text change to allow that. Being that it was as complicated as it is, the town is sponsoring this request for a change, if it is changed. It may not be changed, but if it is, the town is sponsoring. But this young man has requested that we look at adding that so he could have a camping facility on his property.
Well, when we started zoning, Nancy Randall and I went over to Union County zoning board, zoning committees. And Union County, I usually had this in the highway corridor and in RA 40. You had SS, just like, the asking for here. But we took it out of the RA 40. We decided that we didn't need it for something. I wouldn't.
And that's the way it is today.
That's the way it is today. Well, so we're looking at going back in. Now, I looked at that. I called Sandra Gaddy today. Sandra, she's the land use administrator at Unionville. And I looked at there, Sandra.
Sonia.
Sonia.
I'm sorry. Sonia.
I said it right first, didn't
You said Sandra.
I met you.
I can't
Okay.
remember.
But they got in there, both places. And because what I wanted to see, I wanted to look at one, in action, see one that's been developed. But Unionville's never had a proposal. They never had a request for it.
We had it.
Until now.
We had that request yet.
Well,
Well, you got one pending.
yeah,
No, we
right.
got one pending.
Well, pending in lower cats.
Yeah.
Lower letters.
I got one pending.
Okay.
He tried to operate one.
Right.
Until it was shut down. That make any sense? But
Yeah,
now,
I'm with you.
it could be different from his too, from what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I'd like to see, seems like we ought to have highway corridor here. I mean, on the map. You know, we don't have it saying zone highway corridor.
That's right, we don't have any RA eight either.
We don't have any.
We don't have a B one, or B two,
One place it says
or B three, we don't have any of those.
driveways, you know, are supposed to be so wide on 45-mile zone. We don't have any 45, you know, our highway corridor is 601 and 218, if you were going to do it. And they are 55 miles an hour. Okay. So,
NCDOT sort of controls that.
I know. We have seen that. Okay, I got another question, but I'm going to take a little more time right now.
All right. Sir, do you have a comment about the text change?
Me?
Yes, sir. Okay. All right, good. If you did, I was going to recognize you now. The first thing that came to my mind, I don't know about you guys, is I'm not sure exactly what the definition of an HC corridor, the highway corridor, mixed use is. I couldn't remember. So I went ahead and looked it up. Basically, Bill's right. The district intended to accommodate a wide variety of commercial and light industrial uses along major transportation corridors, subject to the performance standards designed to, one, ensure the visibility of highway as a carrier of high volume of traffic. Two, recognize and preserve the value of land along the corridor as the sites of significant non-residential development. And three, protect the visibility of residential neighborhoods adjacent to the corridor. It is intended that development that occur within this district is particularly sensitive to the needs to preserve a high degree of aesthetics appeal along major transportation corridors. It's like we're saying, it's development for industrial, as well as a commercial and light industrial. So that's, to me, that just sort of stood out. The R4,
Okay, what do you say?
oh, I'm just reading the definitions. I'm
Definition of HC,
HC.
that we don't have any.
We don't have any,
But if we
and
did, it would probably be 218, 601.
601, exactly. So to me, saying a campground would fit the definition of what's to occur in HC, it doesn't. So, and that's the reason I would think that the HC doesn't really apply.
But it does now.
Well, it is right now.
It does.
It does right
It's on
now.
the table of uses.
Then
Whether it would be approved or not, the rezoning,
Well, that was my
it may not be.
Why not apply for rezoning? Why change the rules instead of this particular individual not applying for rezoning, I guess is that's, I mean, it just seems really simple to me. So that means that whatever reason, I mean, in my mind, that means that he's probably read that or it has come to, he wouldn't qualify to do that, most likely, potentially, maybe, so we're doing it the other way. I don't know, I'm just,
Probably,
that's how I'm looking at it.
but if you're gonna have 25 acres, it's probably, if it's in B4, it's a shopping center.
Well, but how many, I mean, if there's 25 campsites on 25 acres and it goes in right behind me and people are coming in and out all day on a residential piece of property, I personally wouldn't like that. I wouldn't like that for my children. I wouldn't like that for families.
So it would be zone business of some kind.
That's my
You think-
opinion on that. It seems like.
It was a good question.
I don't know.
If this,
I'm just,
if camping, and if camping, I can see where primitive camping wouldn't be near as commercial as trailer, camping with a,
By definition, it's not.
yeah. So, but both have tendencies to be that you would want to charge for the use of the
well, it's
property.
profitable for someone,
Yeah.
So that, to me, is a business.
business.
Okay?
That's
And I
my
would agree
opinion
with
on that.
he or the person applying for this would have to go through the same procedure theoretically, if he was doing it in R40, as B1 or HC, you still have to go through the process of getting it permitted in that use first. You know, it is an HC, but we don't have an HC. So it would go through a rezoning request, is what I'm saying. So it's like a rezoning request, each one of them. The RA40 would be a permitted use, but he would still have to go through the special use permit. But here again, RA40 is probably, and I say this probably, from the way I'm looking at it, better fit for a campground than light industrial.
Why do you say that?
Yeah.
Light industrial is businesses.
Oh, we just established that is a business.
Yeah.
Light
It is a
industrial to me is
It's a business that actually produce a product to sell,
Okay,
industrial.
okay,
To me, that's what it means.
It's a
okay.
little bit heavy. It's more intense. But now, yeah, a duck is a duck.
Yeah.
But you can actually have a special use permit in residential, and it'd be a commercial use. Now, Nancy Randall, our past chair, did not like it at all. She could not understand how you could have any business in residential. And that's a good point.
It is a good.
What about spot zoning? You always, I've always heard about people getting in trouble with spot zoning. Why don't we have, what are these spot zonings? We got to deal with that.
They are built, but they were, recognized, grandfathered when the time the map was made. They weren't already there.
But we've got to spot zone something else.
No, we're not zoning anything. We are, under the table of uses, permitting an application if you so, if we wanted to in that particular zone. If it
I
was
think that's
approved, it
opening
could
a
probably
door,
be
but
considered.
that's my opinion. I mean, it's just opening a door for,
But look at the things that they can do on page 8 in number 4. Look at all the things they can do there. In that 25 acres.
yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking of like King Creek Park. I'm going there this weekend. I enjoy it. It's a beautiful place and I don't think it's a bad thing, especially for our community to allow that kind of thing, but on the same thing that would be zoned in a residential area,
Isn't that included in the park?
it's on a different section of the park. It's in its own individual section of the park. You go down a
It's still part of the park.
residential-ish road, probably similar to a lot of roads that we have around here. But it's a lot of traffic. It's campers, it's trailers coming in and out.
Mecklenburg County's got a beautiful site for camping like that, for campers.
I mean, I think that's good, but I don't know that, I mean,
But it's in a park,
it's not.
or it's
Well-
associated with a park.
Yeah, I mean, it's not associated with the park, and it's also, why? I mean, if that's what you want to do, I mean, again, I think it's a business. Are you producing an item? No, but a lot of people are businesses and they're, providing services, Doctors provide services, they're not making a product, but it's still a business.
That would be your comment when you had a specific site and a person up here wanting you to approve this site. That would be a good question. Here again, we're just creating now I'm not for or against. Okay? Don't get me wrong. I want your feelings about whether it should be even included in the table. In this particular zone.
You mean the campsites, campground be included?
This particular use.
Oh.
Camping and vehicle, recreational vehicles.
It sounds like we're making a
I say
comment
no. I'm
that,
just gonna say no, I don't want, um,
it sounds like we're making a comment that, oh, it's just a text change, but really it's not. You're asking a business, and I've written that down too, aren't these businesses not residential? Not just purely residential. Aren't we asking a business to be zoned in a residential area for the use of campground, as a campground. That's what I think that's doing. It's not just a text change, you're
Well, it's
changing.
a text change physically.
It physically a
Right,
text
but-
change, it's materially to me a change in zoning for that use.
For that purpose, I agree.
Mhm.
100%. 100%.
All right, let me back up. Parks are generally zoned residential, so, but that's just, it may have a campground associated with it, would be a small piece of that. That would be a park. Then you have campgrounds that are just solely developed for camping. I don't know what those are zoned, I never looked at that, so. Bill made a comment about spot zoning, well, we don't want to try and do that. I mean, that's one of the key things, I think, also here. I agree, it doesn't seem to fit for the R40, to accommodate the low-density residential development. When we put one of these in on this 5,000 square feet minimum itself, that gets back into a higher density. B4, which is general commercial district, it can accommodate the widest range of commercial activity. I agree, it seems like business. And then I go back to, okay, in the future, we may have a parcel that, is 25, 40 acres in the middle of a residential area, and that would be a spot zone itself. So it's back to what serves the community the best. So I'll leave that as an open discussion. What do you guys think would be the best for our town?
Would it be better in another zone?
That's true.
Would this use be better than another zone? And if so, which one?
I printed out, I got the whole list of the zones and D6 and, office space and D1 descriptions. It's like I said, I wasn't positive myself when I was reading over this, so I just went into the make copies of it. So,
It really doesn't fit anywhere perfect
no,
as businesses might not. But, I can see it in large rural areas. I'm not making, before I can see it in like,
oh, yeah, light those.
or in a downtown area.
I
Just,
just think if we agree to the residential, that opens up a large window, like you said, it's just a large window. If somebody came in and said, we don't have to say anything about spot zoning specifically, but if somebody had, a plan, just like we listen to anybody that's got a plan to do anything, they can still come before and.
they come unless it's permitted. That's what you gotta
Or
do
they
first.
can
After it's permitted,
rezone,
then they
or
could come.
they can request it to be rezoned or evaluated in a different way than changing what I agree is not wording, it's really changing the use of.
We build on uses.
um,
When somebody comes to me and wants to do something in Fairview, it's gotta be a particular use. He's gotta tell me what it is. You just can't come into town unless it's pre-zoned for that use and say, well, I'm just going, for example, a residential property, if you want to do anything other than build a house, I'll ask you what it is. Because it has to be permitted under the table of uses. Now, we have rezoned this little acre and a half right between the town hall and the service station to B4. The B4, there's a lot of things permitted in B4. By right. So if they wanted to build a pizza place, that's permitted. It's a business. Now, there's other things they have to worry about, but it's a business and it fits in B4. It doesn't fit in residential. Everything comes used to it. And that's what I go by first. If it gets by the use, then it has to be permitted. You have to have permission, in other words, to apply for it in a particular zone. If you have purpose, and on all our properties are zoned. Now, 98.5% of our properties in this town are residential. So anything coming, anybody that, I get calls all the time, but can I put a, car shop on my street? Residential. Well, how do I get it changed? You wanna come through the rezoning request? It's not zone that particular place and all this residential? I don't think I can do that. You know what I mean? So that's where it would come into effect. But has he got a right to ask? Sure. Yes, he would. And I've been asked some mighty strange stuff.
This just seems to be so broad though, you know, from something we don't even have, which is the highway corridor, which I think we all agree we don't have in Fairview. And it's pretty broad going from something we don't have to putting it right in the middle of everything we have. Like you said, 95.8% of your properties on our map are in RA 40. I think it's opening up an awful lot of liability to say, we're just gonna treat this as a text change and let you apply, and then we'll deal with the fodder after you make your application. And I would guard against, just put it out there, I'm gonna guard against putting it in such a broad category, because it really is a business, not a residential use.
I also agree that it is that way, and there's a reason that people live here, and a lot of people move here because of that. You know, it is predominantly residential, and I think people enjoy that, and there's a place for that. That's one reason I moved here, you know. Not that a campground would, you know, change that per se, but
Most
it is a
people,
broad.
if that campground broke off Page Road, you would care. That's what most people.
I mean,
But
we kind of have.
y'all have got to recommend as a group to the council, hey, should it be permitted? Now, another reason we don't have HC is control factor. In other words, if somebody wants to come and put a use that's in HC, we don't have an HC, what do we have to do first? Get the property rezoned, then the use has to be approved. We make it awful complicated for ourselves, but we can do it right now because we're small. We control it. If it doesn't, if it didn't rezone, then the applications become void because it's not approved. You see what the control,
I understand.
we got way too much control probably, but right now we can have. Most towns have areas that are already zoned, so you can go do this here. But they want it zoned. Uses. Right, what do you think?
I find myself agreeing with those two ladies that were really, talking about, opening the door to things that may have ramifications that we can really for cities. It's easier to allow something later than it is to take away something that you put in now.
100%.
I tend to be a little bit more careful about decisions like this. That's just me.
To add to that, I have a question. Do we have a duty of any kind to designate where camping and recreational vehicle parks would go on this use table, if not under HC? Do we have a duty to make another
You do
designation,
not have to.
even though we don't have an HC?
That's correct. Again, that's a control factor. And that's probably one of the reasons it's in there, Mike.
You don't know when it became a part of the use table, do you?
Well, I think, sometime between, when we were using the counties and when we developed our own.
Okay.
Now, when we first started, highway commercial wasn't in the zone. And it isn't in operation then, we don't have any highway commercial, but if we did, it would probably be better suited for the highways. It's like if a parts store came to town and wanted to buy a lot across the street over here, or an acre, and put a parts store right there, would that make sense? Yeah, probably, it's on the highway, it's got good access, it's not it doesn't smell bad, but it would still have a different process. Because that over there residential. We have really restricted ourselves to where we want to control everything. And we do by special use permits and rezoning classification. So I don't know whether that answers your question or not. Are we obligated, her question was, are we obligated to find a place for it?
Well, you had brought this to us as what if somebody wanted to, but you really know somebody who wants to? So if we decide not to do it under RA 40, do we then say, okay, where would you put it?
Yeah, unless, with it being the highway corridor, unless he's on 601 or 218, you just, well,
That's right.
and I guess that's where I was struggling to going to a B4, because this seems to be a business, and it gives a broad amount of uses in a B4.
And a lot of scrutiny before you would approve their application to go forward. I think which is important because it is a service business. So I think that B4 is appropriate too, because there's a lot of requirements before approval.
I would still have the special use permit required, and supplemental regulations applied also. So it's just not a Casablanca check mark.
Yeah, and the other, I'm just throwing this out there, the other, sort of scary part about this would be that, let's say that it wasn't business, right? It was residential and so-and-so has, 25 friends that want to come from all over and pull their campers in and out and that kind of thing. That's not really, like tiny houses, and there's nothing against that, but I'm saying, what if he's not making money and these are just people that are, coming from all over the place and they're not even paying, or things like that. There's other things
Well, they
in
are
my
paying.
mind that come along with that kind of thing potentially that can be not residential oriented.
And going through the process, whoever they are, is gonna come to this board, and that's what you're gonna say.
Yeah.
That's what kind of questions you would have. So it may not be approved, period, anywhere. It may not be approved. So you're just saying, well, we see it not in RA 40, but we could see it in B4. So,
I just think careful evaluation of the wording, because then we would be relying on the wording to.
Oh, that's always true.
I mean,
Yeah.
if we change the wording to open that up, then we're saying we're relying on whatever that wording change is based on whether we feel it suits the location or not,
Yeah, we have that leverage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
If you're right next to a school, I don't think that would be appropriate. That's my opinion.
well, you still have the leverage, I think, whether it's in RA 40 or B4, that might be different. It has to be through the zone.
That's correct.
And I guess if he's an owner, just,
If he owns B property. If he owns
yes,
B
that's what I was getting ready to
then he
say.
can apply.
He might not have
If
the
he
property.
doesn't, he cannot apply. He has to go through the rezoning process.
And no matter what, he still has to come before this board
That's right.
to get a
That's right.
recommendation.
That's right.
But at least with
That's your checks and
B4,
balances.
at least with B4, he doesn't have to be on a highway.
Yes. No way of saying you're not limited to be on 601 and
Correct.
218.
But it may not be approved either. Correct. I think when it's two separate things, and you can look at the table of uses in anything and argue, why is it permitted there and not here? And we have talked about maybe this group going through the table of uses again, to maybe recalculate some of them. It used to be that this may not have fit there, but now we don't have a problem. For example, we used to say cell towers were terrible. We didn't want them anywhere. Well, okay, we didn't want cell towers in town. Now look, it's because we have developed a need for it. You know, that's what, and that's changed. So is there other things that need to be changed? Should be.
If this camera room could
Or-
go some high-speed internet, he'd be set.
Or should we just not permit it at all? And let him ask for the rezoning and get turned out? You know, it's a control factor.
So you agree it's not just a text change?
I have to list it as a text change. I have to call it a text change. But it is.
Is that what we're voting on, just a text change, or are we voting on?
Just a text change. Just whether you see this as a use in RA4. Very clear cut to me.
My
Yes or no?
answer to that is no. If we want to evaluate it to B4 or change it or further discuss.
And we're not even
that's
being,
fine.
we're not even being asked to change it to
Let's not
anything
do
else.
that right now.
Yeah.
Let's come back and consider that. But let's not knock out this. The question is this.
All right, guys. Go ahead and,
The question is that, and it's very clear. You just read the thing. Are you willing to put this use in RA4? If it is no, depending on, you know, and we've seen the definitions of this. So we've talked about what it can be around here. Should that be in RA4? Don't say, well, I don't think so, but it may be in this one. Don't worry about the others. We hadn't talked about those yet. And that may come back to us. We may decide at a later date that we want to put it somewhere. And we could. Or recommend it. But tonight is just whether you,
all right. Do we have any other discussion about the RA40 versus HC?
well, your question is not discussion about the two.
So we want to do
Oh,
So we want-
then I was going to ask for a motion.
Well, good. It is permitted in HC. You can ask for it in HC. We don't have HC, but you can ask for it.
But you could ask it to be rezoned.
Yes, it's a two process. It's a control factor, two process. Rezone, because we don't have any, so you got rezone. Then you ask for it.
Basically, you've got a choice. You can be in RA40, B4, HC, all the above, or a combination of the above. That's what I'm hearing the board.
But I wouldn't say that.
Okay,
I would say,
I'd say what it says.
do you think it ought to be in RA40?
okay.
Don't worry about the others.
Do I have a motion?
I so move that we take this specifically as it stated, do we want a text change to accept camping and recreational vehicle parks in RA4?
You're opposed to that.
And I say that.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's it. Now, next it will go, before the council. There'll be a public hearing, so anybody can come, voice their opinion. Not to be anybody there, but.
Oh, I'm coming.
The council will, it'll be in a quasi judicial. It's an administrative,
First class.
so they will vote just, up or down, to a majority vote after the public hearing. If they vote do not add, then we don't add. If they vote, yeah, I think it ought to be added, we add. Now remember, I don't think I've ever seen the council, how do I put that, be disrespectful of y'all's opinion.
Yeah.
Never have I done that. So, and that's the way I think it'll probably go with it. So, that's my personal opinion. It's nothing I can call it. Okay,
All right,
thank you.
thanks, sir.
Thank you.
All right. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the March 17th meeting minutes. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to read over them. Any comments, discussion about the meeting minutes of the March 15th? Okay. Do I have a motion to accept those meetings? Do I have a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Okay, the next meeting minutes is September the 20th. Do we have any discussion about those meeting minutes? Okay. Do I have a motion to accept those meeting minutes? Do I have a second? All approved, say aye. Aye, so the motion carries. So the last thing on our agenda is public comments. So if anybody would like to speak, more than welcome.
There's two publics here.
There's three
More, there's four.
There's
Three.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Excuse me.
You snuck in on me. All right. No public comments, so without any, is there any more discussion to be had?
I just have one question. The council did look at Eagle Ridge the same way. We did.
Oh, yeah, that's a good example. Yes, they did. They did approve it, subject to water.
Gotcha. I saw that. in the
And
email.
clearing the trees.
Yes.
Well, Jerry got hung up on the roots of the trees and
Drain fence.
don't think that's gonna be a problem.
What's the issue with number 9? Number 9.
I haven't verified this yet, but the Public Works told Russell that they couldn't provide county water to Lot 9 because it wasn't on the street. So I told them, Russell has got to prove to me that that's what they said in my letter.
Yeah. That's what how I interpreted
And that's a great example. Y'all did a good job with that one. I mean, it was a tough one. But you did a good job and I think the council agrees.
it. That was a good one for the wording one. Just throwing that out there.
All right, that's the limit of our discussions. If nobody objects, I will adjourn the meeting. All right, thanks, guys, ladies.